This is the Rebel Room, a Las Vegas Sun podcast. Ray Brewer alongside Mike Germala talking all things UNLV athletics, and it's been a busy 3 days for the Rebels. Lost to Boise State in the league championship game, and then it kind of gets gradually worse. Barry Odom on Sunday leaves for Purdue. Yep, you got that, Purdue. Big contract there, and the Rebels get picked to play Cal and the LA Bowl by Gronk. December 18th, Southern California. The Rebels will be taking the field, minus Barry Odom, but with everybody else theoretically still coaching them. And the university does say the stars, Jackson Woodard, Ricky White, Jacob DeJesus, will all be suiting up for their last UNLV football games. Mike, a lot to kind of digest. But we knew Barry wouldn't be here forever.
Correct.
There's a lot of schools with a lot of money and a lot of schools with collectives with big NIL money, and you can't blame the man for getting a 200% pay raise.
No, it was, we sort of, as soon as they made the bowl game last year and they were 6-1 and everything was great, the question was, well, how long can you extend him? How long can you keep him? School's going to come for him. And then it became, well, does Barry Odom maybe like it in Las Vegas? Will he just, take the first offer that comes along, or is it going to have to be like a promising school? He's done the power thing before, the power conference thing. He's gotten fired. Maybe he'll be happy here, contending and making, $3 million a year. Maybe he'll be satisfied with that and the Group of Five life. And but no, I mean, it was bound to happen sooner or later. He did. Purdue offered him a lot of money, from what we're hearing, and he went for it.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of interesting hot takes. My first one is everybody who is worried that we're going to go back to the 2-win UNLV program, as if Barry Odom was the only reason the school went to back-to-back Mountain West championship games. I will give Barry Odom credit. He was the best coach in the league, and he outcoached the New Mexicos and the Hawaiis and the UNRs that had lower-tier coaches combined with a lower-tier roster and lower-tier everything.
Yeah, I know your take on this. I've got a devil's advocate. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe, but I do have a counter for you. But make your take that they're not doomed.
I just don't think they're doomed. I think with the infrastructure in place, the stadium, the workout facility, the financial health of the university's athletic department is up for debate. So be it. But this isn't like when UNLV went from Bobby Hauck to Tony Sanchez, and they were lucky to get an average of 15,000 people at a game to keep their Division I status. I think there's some genuine momentum right now for the program, and it's not all because Barry Odom got a great contract from Purdue for beating up on Reno. Go ahead with your devil's advocate take.
I've got 2 words to play devil's advocate here. Those 2 words are Marcus Arroyo, who had all of that as well, but was a really bad coach, and they lost a ton of games under him. So if Eric Harper goes out and hires a really bad coach, none of that stuff is going to matter. They're going to go back to losing again. That's the sort of the doomsayers.
Correct.
That's what everyone's worried about.
And I understand that, and I think that judging from Eric Harper's comments during the newser over the weekend, they are going to try to get somebody who's got some head coaching experience.
He said that so many times that it would shock me if they hired someone who had not been a previous head coach. Just the way he really hammered on that point of that he wants experience, he wants a head coach. So I think that's the starting point for whoever they hire next.
Correct. And I just think that this Marcus came in Marcus came in during COVID, didn't have time to work with his guys. Turned out that he had some other flaws, but he had some good players in the program. Ricky White, a few of the starters on the offensive line,
Yep.
a few guys that helped UNLV do what they had to do. I like the fact that everybody's like, oh, did you see that Greg Burrell went into the portal or Tony Grimes went in the portal? So what? There's going to be 1,000 kids in the portal.
Yeah.
Go pick the 20 you want to play football on Saturdays next year and go win the league again. Because there's going to be a ton of 4-star kids that have spent 2 and 3 years developing in Arkansas and Texas who couldn't get on the field at Arkansas and Texas.
No.
And they're going to get an opportunity to get on the field here, and UNLV is going to have a chance again. They don't have a quarterback. I get it. But
No, it's what you're saying makes sense. Like those, Odom proved that it was possible to build a good roster here. They probably had the best roster in the Mountain West. Like it's possible to do. Again, if you get the right coach, like if they hire the right guy who can hit the ground running and not lose too many players and hit the portal and get the right guys and get the quarterback and hit the offensive coordinator and hit on his offensive coordinator pick. Like a lot of things really have to go right no matter how good of a coach you are. But even Barry Odom got lucky to some extent when his first offensive coordinator hire busted immediately when Bobby Petrino left, after a week. And they sort of got lucky that Brendan Marion was still around and available, and they hired him. And that's really why they won the last 2 years. I mean, the defense came along and played really well this year, but the offense was the bread and butter of this team. So the next head coach, he's going to have every opportunity to win. I just think it's going to come down to, after 2 years, I'm not buying that the infrastructure is there, that anyone can succeed. I still think that's going to have to be a really good hire.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you can't bring in, Jim Strong.
Like, let me say, I'll give you an example. Like Boise State, they've been great for 20 years. They hired that Alex Avila, who was not a good coach, but they were still like above 500. They were still like they didn't basement out. Like he got, when they got fired, I believe they were 500 exactly. So it's not like they were horrible. It's like because they're so good, their infrastructure carried a bad coach. I don't think UNLV can do that.
But is the bar for UNLV football 10 wins, a ranked team, and a spot in the league game? Or could this evolve? I think for me, what would be even more impressive is if they could string together like 4 winning seasons.
Bowl games.
And going to bowl games and seeing the attendance remain consistent. Because that's what it's going to take to get out of the Mountain West and get to whenever the reset button on college alignment, whenever Cal and Stanford are sick of going to Virginia for league games, that's what it's going to take to get UNLV right side up on some of these, realignment talks. And, I mean, was Barry Odom a great coach?
He was.
I mean, look at some of the clock management stuff.
He was a good big picture guy. Like he had a plan. He was good at like the elements that outside of game day he was good as well. But like practice, like their practices were so good compared to other previous coaching staffs. Like it's not a wasted moment. Everyone's getting real work in. Everyone's getting good work in. The reps are good. Like their practices were high quality practices. Like. Now, I'm not a football, savant. I don't crunch the tape, 24/7. So it's hard for me to discern what's happening at practice most of the time. But even I could sit there in training camp and say, wow, this is a lot crisper than what they were doing under previous coaching staffs. Like, they're really getting through these drills. Like, everyone's, looks good. They're doing it all right. So Odom is really great at that. Like, he runs a tight ship. He knows what he wants. He had a plan. He gets the players that can fit it and stick to it, and he gets good leaders. He hired good coaches.
Everybody's got a plan. You're not getting a D1 job without a plan.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the guy that UNLV is going to hire isn't going to come in and Eric Harper's not going to forget to ask him what his plan and his vision is.
Yeah, well...
It's just Barry Odom's plan happened to work because he was able to get Jackson Woodard to come lead the defense, which, by the way, wasn't great in the bowl game loss last year to Kansas. right?
No.
He was able to, I guess, he didn't get the right quarterback in both of the 2 years he was here. Right?
Yeah.
Brumfeld gets hurt. Maeva takes over. Maeva, Aurora recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then he had the wrong quarterback this year.
I will push back a little on that. Hajj Malik Williams was great.
Was he great?
He was good.
Was he great on Friday, Michael?
No, he's good in the go-go offense. But what I'm saying is, I saw a lot of people saying, like, we ended up with the better quarterback, or it's a good thing that Sluka left. I saw really no evidence that if Sluka had stayed for the full year, I see no evidence why they wouldn't be right back in the championship game. Like, they would have still won those 10 games with Matthew Sluka. Like, how many close games did they really play where, Sluka went and beat Kansas on the road. They beat Houston on the road. Like, they would have figured it out.
Kansas game.
Yeah.
Michael, they won on a 19-play, 11-minute drive.
All runs. They recovered their own fumble for a first down. I know.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph helped us get that win.
He was good. They would have figured it out. It wouldn't have been the same, but they would have figured it out. The offense is the system is that good. Sluka is talented enough. They would have figured it out. They would have won 10 games. They would have been in the Mountain West Championship game. I'm confident of that. That's why when I first heard that, when Odom, you kind of figured that Odom is leading up to the game. There's too many rumors. We kind of all thought he was gone.
And he thought he was gone.
Yes, this is obviously...
here's my one problem. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go for it.
Could we find a coach that wants to live in Vegas? Okay, because my thoughts on Marcus.
Yeah.
And his Oregon license.
Never changed his license plates.
Pissed me off. It really upset me.
Yeah.
Okay, because you got to remember, I have ownership on this. Is my university.
Mm-hmm.
I'm born and raised here. And you knew Barry Odom didn't want to be part of our community when his kid goes back to Arkansas. And you'll say it's because he wanted to graduate with his friends. No, he didn't. He was not good enough to be the quarterback at Faith Lutheran. That's what happened. Thank God we got out of that little letter of intent.
You think he would have made him play? You think he would have made him the quarterback here at UNLV?
He's going to run down with his brother on special teams.
I think you're right. It's clear that Odom did not. He didn't envision himself in Las Vegas long term. He took the job as a stepping stone. We had talked about this before our previous podcast, and just privately, like, hey, would Odom turn down a bad Power 5 job and wait for a good one because he's done it before and he's been fired and he doesn't want to jump right into the hot seat and put his family through that and all that? But no, in the end, he did. He took the first offer that came along. He was like, give me the first ticket out of town. Purdue? Sure, sounds great. He's got no connection there. It's not his region. Like, he's got really no reason for him to be at Purdue except he got the offer.
His UNLV team would have crushed Purdue this year. Secondly, Purdue is never going to be a top 6 Big Ten team. Never. Not one time, Michael.
Hey, if the contract numbers that we were talking about before the show are true, it doesn't matter if he gets fired after 2 years. He'll be happy. He can still go get a job.
He'll have his money locked up forever.
So
then he'll take a few years off. He'll go be at DC somewhere if he wants to do it. I understand.
So
he's 48. I'm 48. I would take that job in a heartbeat.
I asked Eric Harper, the athletic director. I asked him at the press conference, when you make this next hire, will longevity be a factor? Will you take it into account, like, hey, does this coach, might he actually stay here if we win? And will he want to be here? And he sort of said, he really didn't answer the question. He said, that's just the life of a group of 5. Some coaches are going to want to use it as a stepping stone. He said that Barry didn't do that. I think he did. So there's really no way to get around it. Let me ask you just a complete hypothetical. Given if the current college landscape, if Jerry Tarkanian was here winning at UNLV, would he stay at UNLV?
It's a good question.
Or would he be gone to like Kansas or some blue blood school or Notre Dame or some school that's just got a ton of money to pay him?
Yeah, I think Tark liked having the freedoms that UNLV gave him, and the Strip was also very kind to him.
In a way that's not really possible these days. I feel like just because of it's not the same Las Vegas that it was.
And this trip, to be honest with you, they've given millions to UNLV, right? There was an announcement today that one of the casino companies gave $13 million for a Chinese program. The football program received from Boyd Gaming a certain amount of money. That is well and true, but when people say, oh, like Sunday night or Sunday morning when the Odom, you text me and the Odom thing was up and running, people were like, the casinos need to step up. They don't care. I mean, nobody cares. I mean, it's nice to say that they do.
I mean, the casinos are corporate owned. Like, there's no one at the top who bleeds for UNLV. I feel like in 2024, like in 1985. Maybe there were some casino heads. I know there were. I know famously, Steve Wayne was a big, UNLV booster for a certain amount of time. And there were, actual people running the casinos who could get involved in UNLV. It's just not like that anymore. So,
yeah, and I think the one point there, going back to your original question with Tark, I mean, you got to remember, every single home game was 18-5 every night. He sold that arena out. He was getting the best players in the nation to play in the Pac or the Pacific PCAA.
Yeah, I get it because someone responded to one of my tweets about the Odom leaving, and he said that the comment was, if Odom stayed here, he could have been the football Tarkanian in this town, and that just sort of got me thinking, would Tarkanian even be the basketball Tarkanian these days? It's just changed so much. So I don't know if I can hold that against Odom, but. Yeah, I do think that there is the lasting legacy of Barry Odom in Las Vegas is that he proved it can be done at the highest level. They're literally one win away from making it to the college football playoff. So that's what you can accomplish.
Yeah, and I think that they'll have the ability to do that every year. You've got to look at the future schedule. I found it interesting when the Alabama AD came out and he was like, hey, we're going to be careful with our future schedule moving forward. Because, we went out and challenged the who's who and we're in a tough league. And, even though you lost to Vandy in Oklahoma. But I just think that UNLV is going to have a great opportunity to do a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, if they win 9 or 10 games, or if they win 8 or 9 games, and they're close in the, for a league title. But you got to remember, Boise's going to leave, and Fresno's going to leave, and San Diego's going to leave, and that's going to make things differently, right?
Yeah, it's the future looks different going forward. This is again. If they make the right hire and they hit on someone really good, this is a time that you could continue this. The good times can continue rolling here. I agree with you on that. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. If you hire the right guy, the party can keep going. So I would lead into this because my first instinct when I heard Odom was leaving, and this is even going back to last year. If Odom leaves, I always thought that the first option would be elevating Brennan Marion to be the head coach. You get the continuity, you keep the offense. It's a foolproof offense. You're guaranteed 35 points per game. You can plug in basically any quarterback out of the portal. You're good to go. The other opponents apparently haven't figured out the offense to this point. I know Boise State held them to 7 points. I think that's more of a talent thing. Some fans, I feel like the fans are kind of split on that. I put it out there. There's some pushback. Some fans want the experienced head coach. They don't think Marion's ready. I know he's a young guy. I think he's in his early 30s.
I think the one thing with Marion is we need more information on what really did happen with Matthew Sluka.
Yeah.
Which, to remind people, Sluka left the program after the Kansas game, a handful of games into the season, saying that he was promised by a coach some NIL money, which, of course, a coach can't promise anybody NIL money.
No.
That's what I love now. Back in the day when I was coming up, to sound like an old person, a recruit would ask the coach, where do you see me in this offense, what kind of formation do you run, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like you come with your hands out.
Yeah, your agent does the recruiting for you. But Odom said when those reports came out with multiple sources like openly putting their names on it, Matthew Suka's father and his agent, on the record detailing what happened, Barry Odom said, that's not what happened. You guys have the story wrong.
Yeah. Do you think
coincidentally
the Purdue media is going to have to believe him?
No, coincidentally, Barry Odom never got around to telling us what actually happened, the true version of events. I think we can safely say now that the Matthew Sluka version that we got was pretty much what happened.
Yeah, and I don't like.
I'm not knocking Odom because he's gone.
I'm thankful that Michael. I'm a UNLV graduate and I'm a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. You like the Red Sox and the Patriots and the Celtics.
Sure.
You've had plenty of opportunities to have meaningful nights of television.
Yeah.
And it just quite isn't there. I mean, Kevin Kruger should be kissing Barry Odom's feet on the way out the door because the basketball team sucks. They're awful.
It's a bad year.
DJ Thomas is not improved. And if it was Dave Rice, he would be unemployed. And Kevin Kruger should be kissing the ground that Eric Harper can't pay attention to him. They suck.
That's not unique to UNLV. That's around the country. Football is king. College football is everything. Every other sport is not really relevant. Basketball. There are still some schools that hold out as basketball schools. UConn, Gonzaga, UNLV. I would put in there. New Mexico, Kansas. North Carolina. So there are schools, obviously, that are blue blood basketball schools. That's the big revenue driver.
Can we get Bill Belichick, speaking of North Carolina, to come to UNLV?
Hey, he'll interview anywhere, apparently.
That would be so fun.
I was shocked when I saw that.
Maybe his girlfriend could take grad school here.
UNLV. But Marion, do you want him? Do you want a head coach, or do you want to keep this go-go offense in town for? If I tell you you can have Marion for 3 years. You're going to score 35 points a game. You can win 9 games a year. Maybe you have a Mountain West championship run in there.
Who's going to be your DC?
I don't know. I don't know what I haven't put the research in. I don't know what he's got for connections around the college football world. I don't know who he would bring in for his staff. I don't know who he would keep on the staff, who would get away. I'm sure he's got offensive people he could put in place. But do you want to continue this coaching staff, and do you want the go-go offense to be UNLV's identity for the next 3 years, let's say? I think is reasonable. And then after that, someone will hire him away. But once he's a head coach,
the question is, if the guy makes $175 here, theoretically you give him the same contract you gave Barry. Could he make more to be the LSU OC?
Yes, but he'd be the offensive coordinator. Whereas, like the sweetener that you have is that, hey, you're a head coach now. Like you can go make more money and be an OC, but you're still just an OC. You're still waiting for your chance. Here, you're going to get your chance.
So my deal, to go back with what Eric Harper had said Sunday morning, is a head coach has to be a CEO, is to manage countless people.
Yeah, what Harper said was, as a coordinator, you've got like 5 to 8 people you're managing on a day-to-day basis. When you become the head coach, it's 40 plus. You're running the whole program. You really need like good management skills. Mm-hmm. Arroyo's one of his biggest problems, I thought, was he was super focused on.
The only way for me that works is if you call Hunky in and you say, Hunky, we want you to be the GM of the team.
That would be a good role for him.
Right, where you're kind of like, because I don't know if Brendan Marion is qualified to do the running the whole ship, and he would need some help. And he's a younger guy. He's younger than you, Mike.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he's young. He's up and coming. That's one of the reasons why you can get him.
And Barry was a grinder. He spent a lot of time micromanaging things and saying he wasn't micromanaging.
That's true. Barry Odom behind the scenes. He was very involved in a lot of things. Brennan, but I'm just, so Marion, he's not a perfect candidate because you get the Sluka situation, you got the youth, he's not experienced running an entire program. You don't know how vast his network is of coaches because, when you're hired as head coach, you've got to start making calls before you're interviewed. Most of the time, that's part of what your coaching interview is. Like the AD says, what would your staff be like? Who can you get in as your staff? How would you hit the ground running? What's your plan? So you've got to have all those people on board already. So I don't know how quickly he can mobilize that. So there are some questions. What I'm telling you is you never have to worry about quarterback. You score 35 points a game. The go-go is locked in.
Who's going to be the defensive coordinator?
I don't know.
And where are you going to get the defensive players from?
I can't tell you that. All I can tell you about Brendan Marion is that you're going to score a ton of points, and you don't have to worry about quarterback.
Play a team that's got a good defensive line.
But that's any offense.
And you decide you don't want to run the ball anymore.
But that's any offense.
If we're going to start holding the program to a standard, we should say what happened in the Boise game, right? They mismanaged the end of the first half. They didn't tackle, and they gave up a long touchdown.
That should have been a 14-7 game in the fourth quarter.
And the play calling was garbage, complete garbage.
That I don't know.
The quarterback was 12 for 31, Michael.
Yeah.
How are you 12? Is it the weather?
The weather was not bad. It was a nice day.
Was Ricky White in the game?
They couldn't get the ball to him.
Why didn't he get the ball?
They targeted him. They couldn't get the ball to him.
Why didn't Jacob DeJesus run the ball more?
Couldn't get him open.
I don't know anything
get him
about
in space.
football, but you know what I know? The best players on the field touch the ball. Brennan Marion did not get the ball to the two best players UNLV has.
What I can tell you is all those things you're saying were true for one game. The other 30 games or 26 games he's been here, they've done exactly what you're asking for.
What's the common denominator, though? They played a good team.
Yeah. They've played Boise before, and they've scored points on them. It was a
here. They played them here.
Yeah, I know.
In an indoor environment.
So are you? I think that
all I'm saying is
one game against a good team who's really rolling. Boise State's the number 9 team in the country. Like if they hold, it's no shame to lose 21-7 to Boise State. I'm not firing the coaches for losing 21-7 at Boise State.
If you're going to hire a coordinator, just talking out loud. If Eric Harper's going to tell us he doesn't want to hire a coordinator, and he decides to settle with Brennan Marion,
I don't think they'd be settling, but go on.
Well, for us, for looking at his quotes saying we're not going to, okay, and if they decide to keep the go-go offense going and go get a quarterback in the portal to run it, right? Why wouldn't you pick the defensive coordinator to be your head coach?
Because their offense is better than their defense. And offense is more sustainable.
Their defensive coordinator is Barry Odom White. Their defensive coordinator, did I say defensive or offense?
You said defensive coordinator. You said why don't they keep Scherer instead as the head coach?
Yes.
Who's also a very young guy. I think they're probably around the same age, early 30s.
Barry Odom White. He's the Barry Odom clone. He is Barry Odom.
He's excellent. I loved what they did on defense this year. They were aggressive. They were flying around. They created some plays. I love the guys they brought in. Offense is more sustainable year to year. If you have the singular mind at offense running your program, it's more stability because you can plan for offense easier than you can plan to build a defense, in my opinion. That's why I think at the NFL level, you see most of the head coaching hires are offensive guys because that coach-quarterback connection is the biggest thing. It's not quite as extreme in college football. You can win in other ways, but still.
Does it scare you that in 2 years they didn't even come close to developing a quarterback?
No, because not with this offense. But if you brought in another coach who couldn't develop quarterbacks, I'd be like, sure, show me that you can recruit someone who's good. But for this offensive system, it doesn't really matter. You can bring in a runner first. You can bring in a passer. You can bring in a pocket guy like Mayava. You can bring in a dual threat like Haj Malik Williams. And even those guys who aren't great, like none of those guys are NFL prospects. None of those guys are like All-Americans. None of those guys are good. they're not excellent players, but they're excellent in the go-go offense. It's quarterback proof. Hajj Malik Williams was the second team All Mountain West. He didn't even play the first 3 games. You saw what happened when he went against that Boise State defense. Like he's definitely got some limitations as a quarterback, but in this offense, he was unbelievable.
Like passing?
Yeah. He can't throw down the field. And if the guy's not wide open, he's probably not going to fit it in there. But they make it work.
How much of Barry Odom's success was him out coaching inferior Mountain West coaches?
There was a good amount of that. Like he's better than some of these Mountain West coaches, a lot of them. Honestly, if you're giving me a pie of like who, I'm saying like Odom like 40% and Marion's like 39%. Like I give Marion as much credit almost as Barry Odom. I think their offense was what they were these past 2 years. I think that's why they won. In case you can't tell, I'm a proponent of hiring Marion and giving him the job and trying to keep him around as long as possible. Even though the Sluka thing makes me uncomfortable, we know what.
Is that the only thing that makes you uncomfortable?
No, everything you brought up valid points. Those are the things that'll come up in his job interview. Those are the kind of things that an AD will bring up.
God willing, it comes up.
Yeah, they're not just going to hire him willy nilly. They're going to say like, what kind of coaches can you bring in? What's your stance on why haven't you developed? Why have we made the wrong choice at quarterback 2 years in a row? If you believe Sluka was the wrong choice,
yeah.
They'll ask him those things.
Did Jacob DeJesus go to the Boise game? We missed him. Was he out there at all?
They'll say like what happened at Boise State? Like why did the offense get shut down? That? Probably. Interviews for head coaching jobs are really long. They're like 3, 4, 5 hours long. A lot of stuff comes up. I think that all those questions that you have will come up, and if Marion has good answers for them, and he impresses the person doing the hiring,
is Brendan Marion going to encourage? Is whomever is paying money to that collective going to give money for Brendan Marion?
Why wouldn't they? That's the one thing I will say. Odom was not good at raising money. Schmoozing boosters, working with the NIL people. He wanted no part of that. He's not a believer in NIL. He believes that every player on the team should receive the same amount of money. He's not going to use NIL to recruit.
Well, apparently his wife told him, according to the broadcast on Friday, that he had to start embracing the times.
Yeah, and I'm sure like that was a big thing. I think that's probably why he didn't get hired away last offseason, because that's huge. If he goes into a job interview and says, I don't like NIL, I'm not going to use it, he's not going to get hired. So he obviously changed that answer when Purdue asked him about it. But Marion, by default, will be better than Barry Odom at doing what you're saying, working the NIL people, working the donors, getting more money into the program. Even if he puts a little bit of effort into it, he'll be better than
the one thing I do like about Marion is there is momentum for the program, undeniable. And some of those things you brought up about how the practice flows, he would be able to maintain. And I do think that makes a difference, because you go to, like, I cover high school football. You go to a Gorman practice, right?
Yeah.
Crisp, live.
Yeah.
You go to some of these public school practices.
Yeah. And you're frustrated just watching them.
It's like you're watching the Henderson Cowboys.
They're wasting so much time.
Yeah.
The reps are not good.
Correct.
But yeah, so like I know
you got kids screwing around on the sidelines.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of girls walking around the track looking at everybody.
That doesn't happen at UNLV practices. They're locked in. And how many running backs have they had that just like break off a big play? Like they had Kylan James bust off an 86-yard run in the championship game, and we haven't heard from him in weeks. Like they plug in any running back, and that guy averages 6 yards a carry. They plug in any quarterback, and that guy's
By the way, if I'm Jet Thomas,
any offensive line,
I tell the collective I want X, and I want to touch the ball this many times.
And you know what? If you bring back Marion, it doesn't even matter. Like you can get rich if Jet Thomas wants to leave. They'll get someone to put up the exact same numbers. That's what I think anyways. I think it's all system. I think it's that system. I think running back they can get anyone to play there. I think the quarterback, offensive line, you see that they're bringing in a ton of good receivers. Like if you want to score a ton of points and be a fun team, that's just my opinion. I think Marion should be their first choice.
Yeah.
But
it's been a fun talk. We're going to keep our ears to the ground and our fingers on our keyboards, Mike and Ray. I appreciate everybody following us. We're geared up for the coaching change. It was 4 years and fired, 5 years and fired, 2 years and new job, and it's an honor that we have this problem because it's better than Barry Odom being the next coach to fail at UNLV and being fired.
And there's still the LA Bowl to cover. That'll be fun. Like, follow the team. Like, that'll be a fun game, and we'll be covering it. So
Yes. Alrighty. For Michael, I'm Raymond, and we wish you a great week.